Good morning. This is Omni View, episode 64. It's May 29th, 2026, and as always, we're covering what happened from every angle. Let's look at the day's news from every angle. Israel's order to seize 70% of Gaza threatens the October ceasefire and raises risks of renewed fighting across the region. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu directed the army to take control of 70% of the Gaza Strip. The move comes despite an October ceasefire that required Israeli forces to withdraw behind a designated demarcation line. Reports indicate Israel already holds roughly 64% of the territory following earlier operations. France 24 describes the directive as a direct challenge to the ceasefire terms, emphasizing the risk of renewed clashes with Hamas. Israeli officials framed the step as necessary to secure areas still under militant influence and prevent future attacks. Palestinian representatives and some international observers see the expansion as undermining trust in ongoing diplomatic efforts, while noting the already limited space available to civilians along the coast. How might this order affect humanitarian access inside Gaza? Shifting now to a separate security incident, a Russian drone hit a residential building in NATO member Romania, injuring 2 people. The incident occurred near the border with Ukraine. Romanian authorities described it as the most serious security breach since the start of the Ukraine war. Romanian officials and NATO allies view the strike as a dangerous spillover that tests alliance resolve on the eastern flank. Russian sources have not publicly claimed responsibility, while some European commentators warn that repeated boundary testing could lead to stronger collective responses. Both sides agree the drone crossed into Romanian airspace. Disagreement centers on whether the incursion was accidental or deliberate. What evidence would clarify whether the strike was intentional? Meanwhile, Israeli forces carried out airstrikes in southern Lebanon and conducted the first raid near Beirut in weeks. Lebanese authorities reported at least 14 deaths, including 3 children, plus additional casualties near the capital. The attacks occurred ahead of planned military talks in Washington. French and Lebanese sources present the strikes as an escalation that violates the existing ceasefire framework. Israeli statements link the operations to efforts against militant infrastructure. Both sides acknowledge upcoming Pentagon discussions between delegations. They differ on whether the timing of the strikes strengthens or weakens prospects for those talks. How do the strikes affect preparations for U.S.-brokered negotiations? The United States and Iran have reached a draft understanding to extend the current ceasefire, reopen shipping through the Strait of Hormuz, and ease some sanctions. The text has not been finalized, and underlying issues over Iran's nuclear program remain for later talks. Conflicting reports from Washington and Tehran have created uncertainty about the scope of the initial deal. Reuters sources cited by France 24 describe the draft as a practical step to reduce immediate energy market pressure. Iranian officials stress that no final text has been confirmed and reject any implication of broader concessions. U.S. statements indicate the parties are close but not yet at an agreement, with emphasis on verification steps still to be negotiated. What verification measures would accompany any shipping or sanctions changes? The head of the World Health Organization arrived in Kinshasa to observe response efforts against a rare strain of Ebola. The outbreak is occurring in a region already facing insecurity and public distrust of health authorities. WHO statements focus on the need for rapid containment and community engagement. Local health workers highlight challenges in reaching affected areas due to ongoing conflict. International observers note that previous Ebola responses succeeded when trust-building measures were prioritized early. What specific measures are being taken to rebuild community trust? Now, to really understand these ceasefire developments, most coverage treats announcements as simple pauses in fighting. Yet the actual mechanism involves layered verification, third-party monitoring, and political signaling that often continues even when violations occur. In practice, a ceasefire typically begins with a written understanding between parties, followed by deployment of observers from neutral states or international bodies who report movements across agreed lines. These reports then feed into diplomatic channels rather than automatic enforcement. Historical parallels, such as the 1973 Sinai disengagement or multiple Lebanon-related truces, show that monitoring teams document incidents but lack independent military power. Compliance ultimately rests on the party's own calculations of cost and benefit. Knowing this, when you hear claims that one side has violated a ceasefire, you can evaluate whether the statement refers to a documented crossing of a monitored line or to a broader political interpretation of intent. The same structure explains why incremental territorial directives, such as orders to expand control, can coexist with ongoing talks. Next time you see a headline about a new ceasefire or its breach, ask who is tasked with on-the-ground verification, what constitutes a reportable incident, and what leverage exists if violations accumulate. Tomorrow, watch for further details on whether the US and Iran finalize their draft understanding on shipping and sanctions. That's OmniView. For full source links and more context, check out today's written briefing on the OmniView Summaries page. As always, compare outlets, look for primary documents, and separate what's known from what's assumed. If balanced perspectives are valuable to you, share this with a friend and subscribe wherever you listen. See you tomorrow. This episode used AI voice synthesis of my voice. Editorial selection and analysis are my own.